All right, everybody. Thank you for being here with us today. This session is called Coping with Intense Emotions or Distress Tolerance. My name is Bailey Reed, and I'm the mental health promotion consultant for the Eastern Urban and Rural Zones. And I'm happy to walk you through this information today. So, distress tolerance. What is it, and how do we use it? So today we're going to be covering the topic of coping with intense emotions. To explore ways to cope with these intense emotions, we're going to be learning distress tolerance skills. We'll be learning about what we mean by distress and how we can cope with distress when we experience it. By the end of this session, it's hoped that people will walk away with more self-awareness and a good toolbox of skills that they can use when experiencing intense emotions. So, what do we mean when we say distress? What does distress mean? What does it bring up to your mind? Well, we all experience emotions. We can't stop or get rid of our feelings or our emotions. Sometimes our emotions are mild, and then other times they're very intense or heightened. A scale of 0 out of 10, for example. Sometimes you might feel that full 10. And when we experience intense emotions that are not pleasant in nature, we can, of course, call that distress. So there are many different situations where distress could potentially be present in our lives, and lots of different things that could potentially trigger distress for us or contribute to it. So some questions just for you to consider are, how do you feel afterward when you acted maybe out of a state of distress, when your emotions were really, really high? How did you feel when you acted on that afterward? Maybe initially when you acted on it, maybe you felt okay. Maybe it felt like a release. But later when you look back and you realize that you acted from that state of distress, maybe you might regret some of that behavior, perhaps. Another question for you to consider is, what have you experienced when you're in distress? For example, like maybe you couldn't think clearly. Maybe you started to have some tunnel vision, or maybe you had certain body sensations that came along with that feeling of distress. It's good to kind of think about how it looks in us, how it manifests, or how it shows up when we do feel a sense of distress. All of us will feel distress differently because we're all unique people. So it's great to identify, when I feel distressed, when my emotions are really high and hard to cope with, where do I feel it? Do I feel it in my body? Do I feel it in my head? How does it manifest? What does it look like? Knowing those signs will also help you to recognize maybe some warning signs. So you might be able to preemptively strike or come up with some ideas to help to regulate yourself prior to getting to that state of full crisis. And we'll talk about that more as we move through. So, while we all have primary emotions, this is an emotion wheel, folks, and you can find many different versions of an emotion wheel just by Googling emotion wheel on the Google search. So we have primary emotions, like some there are sad, happy, surprised, bad, angry, fearful. So those are our primary emotions, but each of these can be experienced at, of course, different levels of intensity. So research shows that being able to have a wide vocabulary for our emotions increases what's called our emotional intelligence, which is of course helpful for distress tolerance. Because when we're able to name it, what exactly it is that we're feeling, we're able to access and lean on the logic part of our brain and not just simply act from the emotion part of our brain. So for example, let's look at happy. Happy can be divided up into many different categories: playful, aroused, or cheeky, content, free, or joyful, interested, curious, and inquisitive, proud, successful, and confident, accepted, respected, and valued, powerful, courageous, and creative, peaceful, loving, and thankful, trusting, sensitive, intimate, optimistic, hopeful, and inspired. So, our emotions and having literacy about them, so knowing what they are when we're experiencing or feeling them, can really help us have a better, more fulsome experience throughout life. And it also certainly helps us when we're experiencing those negative emotions, those emotions when they reach a certain level of intensity, when we're able to name them, it can help us to stay more in our logic brain and less so in our emotional brain. And we're going to talk about that more and more as we go through. And we're going to talk about the reasonable mind and the emotion mind, and then our wise mind and how to access that. So another point on our emotion wheel there is just that some folks might not be aware of emotions when they're more subtle or quiet emotions. And therefore, you might have more struggle with distress as things escalate and get more intense until there is some awareness. So, next, we're going to watch a video on exactly what the wise mind is. But before we do, I'm going to just do a little preface of that. So, it's helpful in understanding yourselves and knowing about these states of your mind can improve your day-to-day life. So, we have our reasonable mind. Our reasonable mind is logic-based. It looks at facts when determining our best decision. Reasonable mind is about what makes logical sense. Then we have our emotion mind. So our emotion mind is responding from the feelings and not considering logical choices. Emotion mind is about what feels good in the moment. Sometimes when we act on what feels good in the moment, it doesn't feel so good later in another moment, right? I'm sure many of us can relate to that. So in the center, this is what's called a Venn diagram, these two circles that converge or come together. In the center there, we have what's called the wise mind. So the wise mind is the overlap between the reasonable mind and the emotional mind. And the wise mind is able to look at what makes sense, but also consider how everything feels. Our wise mind is where our best decisions are made. So our emotions are there and they deserve credence, they deserve to be honored, but we can't make all of our decisions on our emotions either. We also need logic, but we also cannot make all of our decisions based solely on logic without emotion, sensitivity, or feeling, right? So we certainly need a conversion or, a connection of both of those minds. Both our wise mind and our emotion mind need to come together. And when we do both of those things, when both of those things come together, our wise mind is present. So when we bring our emotion mind and our reasonable mind together or our logic mind together, we get our wise mind. And that is the best place to make decisions. So next, let's watch a video on the wise mind.
Wise mind refers to a state of mind or a state of being where you are the wisest and make the most effective decisions. We want you to learn how to recognize wise mind and how to get into that state on purpose, even when you are upset. First, let's distinguish wise mind from two other states of mind that we're frequently in: emotion mind and reasonable mind. Emotion mind is the state of mind when your emotions control your thoughts, urges, and behaviors. When you're in emotion mind, your emotions dictate your responses, regardless of your long-term goals. With anger, you might lash out at someone or engage in road rage behavior. When you're in emotion mind with sadness, you might stay in bed all day and neglect your responsibilities. There are certain vulnerabilities that make you more likely to be in emotion mind. like being tired, hungry, physically ill, stressed, or under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Reasonable mind is a state of mind where reason and logic control your thoughts, urges, and behaviors. When you're in reasonable mind, facts and logic dictate your responses. When you're in reasonable mind, you might demand things go a particular way that you feel is right according to the facts. Maybe reasonable mind sounds good to you, though you have to remember that logic and facts devoid of emotions means you lose your sense of values and empathy. So in reasonable mind, you might not realize that another person is upset and do what's needed to help them. Wise mind represents the integration of emotion mind and reasonable mind. It is knowing the facts and logic in a situation, as well as tuning into emotional and sensory experiences. Similar to intuition, wise mind is often described as a centered gut feeling felt in the body. Finding your wise mind can take a lot of practice. To practice getting into wise mind when you're in a different state of mind, you can do a number of things. One is attending to your breath coming in and out of your body and focusing your attention into your center at the bottom of your breath. You can add the words wise and mind to your in-breath and out-breath. Another exercise is to ask wise mind a question. Breathe in, silently ask wise mind a question, and when you breathe out, just listen without giving yourself an answer. Just notice what answers come up for you. As a skill, wise mind can be incredibly useful for getting you to a more centered place where you can act more effectively.
Excellent. So there's our video on the wise mind. So we've got a greater understanding now of the logic mind and the emotion mind, and then our wise mind and how they both converge, and how we can maybe call on our wise mind through maybe using breath work or asking the wise mind a question, like they had said, or even an affirmation. So saying wise mind when you're in that moment. It's a type of pause that we need to practice in order to access our wise mind better and get more used to that. So next, what are distress tolerance skills? They're tools or skills that we can use when we're in our emotion mind. They're not about fixing or resolving a situation. They can also be called crisis survival skills. They help us get through until we're able to access our wise mind again. So once again, they're not about fixing a situation or resolving a situation. They just help us get through the feeling and the intensity until we're able to access our wise mind again. They're about doing things so that we don't make the situation worse when we are in that intense emotion mind. So here is when to use distress tolerance skills. So when you have intense emotional pain that cannot be helped quickly, intense emotions are extreme, but the problem can't be solved immediately. You might want to act on your emotions, but you know if you do, it could make things worse. The emotion mind threatens to overwhelm you or overcome you and your rational mind. And you're feeling overwhelmed, yet demands still need to be met. So emotions have a built-in action urge. They make us just want to do it. They make us just want to do the thing, right? I think that's a great way of saying it. Emotions have a built-in action urge. So for example, anxiety can make us want to run away and avoid things, or anger makes us want to lash out. Sadness may make us want to withdraw and isolate ourselves. But often when we act on these action urges, it's not helpful, and it often makes the initial situation even worse. So then when things settle down, you still need to deal with the initial accident that triggered the intense emotions. And you may also then need to deal with the problems that could have been created by those action urges. So the problem sort of doubles up when we act on those action urges. So a very important point here. We do not use distress tolerance skills to solve everyday problems. These skills are about tolerating and getting through the painful, difficult emotions. Okay? They're effective for this, but they're not effective for solving problems. They're just about learning how to cope with distress and difficult emotions and helping us to access our wise mind. So, problems that might need to be addressed or might need to be solved could look like a disagreement, maybe with a loved one. Maybe you're not getting enough hours at work or enough money to pay bills, etc. So, distress tolerance skills will not help those types of problems. And trying to use them for those situations will only increase the problem and cause frustration for all involved. So, it's important to really identify that distress tolerance skills are a specific skill set for a specific purpose. And if you overuse them or if you use them incorrectly, these skills could even become an unhealthy form of avoidance. You could overuse the distractions that we teach, or you could get to a place of numbing yourself. So here's just a brief overview of some of the skills that we're going to be learning with coping with intense emotions and distress tolerance or crisis survival skills. There are 6 main skills. So we're going to be talking about the stop skill, pros and cons, list, tip, your body chemistry, accepts, distracting with the wise mind, self-soothing with the 5 senses, and the improve skill, improve the moment. So we can all choose to learn and improve on our skills. Everybody can. Nobody is perfect at coping with every distressing emotion that they might have. These are things that all of us need to practice with intention and discipline. And then with time, we see a difference in our life. Sometimes life hasn't provided us with the opportunity to learn these skills. Maybe not until this very moment in this virtual setting with me. Maybe we didn't have an environment where learning was offered or easy even to focus on. So it's just really important to give yourself credit for choosing to engage in this learning experience now, and that there is so much value in doing this to improve your coping and increase what's called your window of tolerance. So some of these skills may be ones that you have already used. Maybe you already know them. And maybe when learning them now, we're going to hope that you'll benefit even more, as you'll have a more solid understanding of what these skills are, why they work, and how to use them and choose them effectively. Choosing to use your skills with awareness and intention will increase the success and benefit that you see in your life, and it will help you feel more confident and in control of the expression of your emotions, not being controlled by your emotion mind. So first and foremost, we're going to look at the stop skill. S for stop, T for take a step back, O for observe, and P for proceed mindfully. So let's watch our video.
Hi everybody. In this video, we're going to be talking about the stop skill. So when emotion mind takes over, you may find that you often act impulsively without thinking. When we react impulsively, we don't have time to use our skills and to get into wise mind. To be able to use your skills, you need to first stop yourself from reacting. To help you stay in control, you can use this stop skill. There are 4 steps to the stop skill. Stop, take a step back, observe, and proceed mindfully. The first step is to stop. When you feel your emotions are about to take control, stop. Don't react. Don't move a muscle. Just freeze. This will help you prevent yourself from acting on whatever your emotion is telling you to do. Remember, just because an emotion is present, you don't have to do what it tells you. You are the boss of your emotions. The second step is to take a step back. When we're in a difficult situation, when we're experiencing strong emotion, it can be really difficult to think clearly about how to handle it. So you want to give yourself a moment to calm down and to think. Take a step back from the situation, figuratively and literally. So you can take a step back internally, but you can also physically step backwards. This can be a good signal to your emotions that you're taking a moment. Take a deep breath, and take another deep breath, take another deep breath, and do this for as long as you need to until you're out of emotion mode. Remember, you are not your emotion. Don't let your emotion put you over the edge. Third step is to observe. So this really means taking time to observe what is going on around you through your five senses. Where are you? Who's involved? What are other people doing or saying? Generally, using your five senses, sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, to get an idea of what's going on. You also want to observe what is going on inside of you. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What sorts of body sensations are you experiencing? So it's really an opportunity to use your mindfulness skills of observation and non-judgmentalness. So you want to be gathering just the facts, trying to put aside any interpretations or opinions until after you've had the opportunity to observe. You gather the relevant facts to gain a clear picture of what's going on and what your options are. You're less likely to jump to conclusions and less likely to act impulsively. The last step is to proceed mindfully. Ask yourself, what do I want from this situation? What are my goals? What choice might I make that could make the problem better? What choice might I make that could make the problem worse? Ask your wise mind how to deal with this problem. And again, it's really important to know what your goal is. So it's hard to choose a behavior, to choose a skill, to choose a course of action if you don't know where you're headed. So remember, being mindful is the opposite of being impulsive and acting without thinking. When you are calm, you stay in control. When you have some information about what is going on, you are better prepared to deal with the situation effectively and avoid making it worse. Now remember, you feel overwhelmed by emotion if you're in a highly charged emotional situation to practice this stop skill. One thing.
Excellent. Now let's look at it ourselves. So stop. S, do not react. Stop. Freeze. Do not move a muscle. Your emotions may try to make you act without thinking. Stay in control. T, take a step back. Take a step back from the situation. Take a break. Let go. Walk away. Take a deep breath. Do not let your feelings make you act impulsively. O, observe. Notice what's going on inside and outside of you. What is the situation? What are your thoughts and feelings? What are others saying and doing? Proceed mindfully. P, act with awareness in deciding what to do to consider your thoughts and feelings, the situation, and other people's thoughts and feelings. Think about your goals. Which actions will make things better or worse? So the stop skill is excellent to use once you've become aware of maybe what your triggers could be. When I say triggers, I mean signs that maybe you're in your emotion mind. What does it feel like when you are in your emotion mind? When you can tell that your distress has been triggered to a high level, or your emotions are at really a high level that you feel are difficult for you to cope with? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel a flutter of your heart or in your stomach? Do you feel the blood rushing to your face or to your head? Right? Are there certain things that you know will trigger you to be in your emotion mind? So once you become more aware of what your triggers are, then you can use the stop skill preemptively before those emotions become too distressing and before you can actually stop. So it's remembering to practice that pause. So hopefully you folks can see how the stop skill might be helpful. Also, of course, there can be reasons that make this skill difficult to practice, right? But the intention is to practice it, not necessarily to be perfect at it your first try, but to practice it regularly with intention. And once you do, you will get better and better and better at it. And your access to your wise mind will become easier and easier for you. So next, we have our pros and cons of acting on crisis urges. So, examples of action urges could be substance use or yelling. Maybe an action urge could be hitting a wall or ending a relationship. So this sheet is wonderful, and it's just an excellent activity. So I really, really encourage you to look at it with me. So first of all, it asks, describe the problem behavior you're trying to stop. Maybe it's yelling, okay? Could be anything, but we'll say yelling for now. 2, it says list the pros and cons for acting on that crisis urge, for acting on that yelling, including the urges to act and the urges to quit, and create a separate list for resisting that behavior by tolerating distress and using skills. And third, read the pros and cons when an urge toward the problem behavior occurs. So, the problem behavior. Okay, acting on the crisis urge of yelling. When I act on my yelling, what are the pros of that behavior? Maybe the first one is, well, people will listen, people will stop, right? I am in control, right? Those all could be some of the pros. What are some of the cons of acting on that urge? Well, when I act on my yelling, it might frighten other people. It may upset them. It could disturb relationships that I have with people. It may not be appropriate for the context or the place I am, like my workplace, for example. So those are some of the cons. And then when we resist that urge, that crisis urge or that urge to yell, what are the pros of me resisting that urge to yell? Well, I feel more in control of myself. I feel like I'm accessing my wise mind. I have better maybe self-respect and maybe more respect of others. Maybe the cons of me resisting my yelling could be people still don't listen to me when I want them to, or maybe I still don't feel like I'm controlling this situation, right? So you can go through it in that same manner that I just did. So you identify which pros and cons are short term, just for today, and long term, beyond today. And ask your wise mind, would I rather have a good day or a good life? Make a mindful choice about your behavior. This worksheet can help you choose skillful behavior over crisis behavior. So be sure to keep it in a place where you can see it and view it regularly. Maybe keeping it on your kitchen table, or maybe on a magnet on your fridge, for example. So once you complete and you look at all of your points from the perspective of the wise mind and decide if acting on this action urge is effective for you in reaching your goal, sometimes you might have an action urge that you repeat, and it's helpful to do that in advance. So when we're in the emotion mind, we can recall mentally or visually by referring to the sheet what we figured out when we were in the wise mind. So this is just an excellent resource, guys, for you to refer to and look at, so that you feel like you're accessing your wise mind and you're making decisions that are going to be best for you long term and not just in the moment. Another skill, distress tolerance tip, TIPP, the tip skill. To reduce extreme emotion mind fast, change your body chemistry. So temperature, change your body temperature. Splash your face with cold water or drink a big glass of cold water. Hold an ice cube. Let water run on your hands, cold water. Let car AC blow on your face. Take a cold shower. All of these things can help you change from your emotion mind back into your logic mind and then access to your wise mind. So changing your body temperature. That's the first one. T, temperature. I, intense exercise. Do intense exercise to match your intense emotion. If you're feeling anxiety, fear, that need to withdraw, maybe you're getting flutters in your heart or in your stomach, do intense exercise. Sprint, walk, do jumping jacks, do some squats, push-ups, or intense dancing. P, the first P, paced breathing. Try box breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4. And then hold for 4. That's box breathing. So you start that process of box breathing until you feel more calm. And what that does is it slows our heart rate and it teaches our body and our nervous system that we are safe. So breathing, you might have heard many people say, take a deep breath, right? But there is science behind why deep breathing works. And our final P of the tip skill is paired muscle relaxation. So focusing on one muscle group at a time, tightening your muscles as much as possible for 5 seconds and then releasing and relaxing and repeating that with other muscle groups. This is an excellent one to do if you are experiencing anxiety, those intense emotional rushes of anxiety, or the intense emotions of anger. Put your elbows right straight up and your hands in a prayer position and you push, push, push very hard. Do that for a moment, take a couple deep breaths and then release. And you'll actually feel a sensation of release throughout your body. So that is a type of muscle relaxation and certainly a way of externalizing anger or distressing emotions from the body. So next we're going to look at another little video on the tip skill. We're at our tip skill.
The tip skills are used when you're feeling incredibly intense emotions, specifically when your emotion or stress is so intense that you can't even think straight. The tip skills work by changing your body chemistry in order to reduce extreme emotions as quickly as possible so that you can use other skills or proceed effectively. There are 4 tip skills: temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing, and paired muscle relaxation. The T in TIP stands for tip the temperature. It involves using cold water to trick your body into thinking that you're actually swimming underwater. When humans, or any mammals, swim in cold water, their heart rate decreases in order to increase the likelihood of survival. When we're feeling intense emotions and intense stress, our heart rate is elevated. Our sympathetic nervous system is activated. So tipping the temperature down allows us to decrease our heart rate and activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us. How you tip your temperature is to trick your body into thinking that you are in cold water. The most effective way to do this is to get a bowl of ice water, hold your breath, plunge your face into that bowl of cold water, and try to hold it for at least 30 seconds. If you don't have a bowl of ice water handy, an alternative would be to take a Ziploc bag of ice or an ice pack and hold it over your eyes, temple, and upper cheeks. If you do this method, you still want to trick your body into thinking that it's underwater. And the way to do that is to hold your breath and tilt your head down to your knees like you're bending over to dive into water. And again, hold your breath for at least 30 seconds if possible. Just a minor note here, if you have a heart condition or are taking medications like a beta blocker, then we encourage you to consult with a healthcare provider before using this skill. The I in TIP stands for intense exercise. The idea here is that when we're feeling extreme emotions or extreme amounts of stress, the body is actually quite revved up. Intense exercise can release some of the stress you're experiencing so that you feel calmer afterwards. Now, in an ideal universe, you're engaging in intense exercise by doing something for 30 minutes or more, going out for a run, jogging up and down staircases, or jumping up and down for long periods of time. But actually, intense exercise can still work really well, even when you just have a couple of minutes. For example, get up and do a minute of jumping jacks, high knees, or push-ups. Anything that gets your heart rate going and gets your physical energy revved up. There are 2 P skills in TIP. The first P stands for paced breathing. The idea is that if we can pace our breathing in a very particular way, we can slow down our heart rate and decrease the escalation or emotional intensity. Here are a few key points about paced breathing. First is that you want the breathing to be from your diaphragm or from your belly area, not from your chest. When we're under a lot of stress and we're breathing very quickly, we tend to do more chest breathing, which is not a relaxation kind of breathing. So we want to move our breathing down into our belly area. Second, we want to slow our pace of inhaling and exhaling. You want to think about it on average of roughly 1 breath every 10 to 12 seconds, which is likely a much slower pace in your breathing when you're experiencing emotional intensity. The last key point about paced breathing is that you want your out breath to be longer than your in breath. So for example, you want to inhale for about 4 seconds and exhale for about 6 seconds. So to summarize, the key points of paced breathing are: breathe deeply into your belly area, make sure that your pace of breathing is considerably slower, and make your exhalation longer than your inhalation. Those 3 things together are going to help your breathing get to a more relaxed state and therefore calm your emotion intensity pretty quickly. The last tip skill is the second P, which stands for paired muscle relaxation. This skill is sometimes referred to as progressive muscle relaxation, in which you practice going through your body, muscle group by muscle group, first tensing the muscles as hard as you can, and then releasing. And as you release, say the word relax in your mind and let go of the tension. The idea is that if you first tense your muscles really tightly before relaxing, you actually end up in a more relaxed state than if you just try to relax your muscles without tensing first. Paired muscle relaxation practices can be brief or can go for as long as 45 minutes, so you can slowly go through each muscle group. All of this will help you feel more relaxed at the end compared to when you started, which will get you out of feeling extreme emotions and more likely to behave skillfully.
Excellent. So there's our tip skill. Now let's move to a DBT skill called accept. DBT is in dialectical behavior therapy. So this skill will help you tolerate a negative emotion until you're able to address and eventually resolve a situation. So these types of skills are to help take a person's attention off of the intense emotions and the triggering situation temporarily, not long term, until a person can access their wise mind. So, A, for activities, to keep your mind off negative emotions, you can use different activities. C, contributing, doing something kind for another person. C, comparisons, to put life in perspective. E, emotions, to invoke the opposite feeling of distress. P, push away, for when you can't deal with something just yet. T, thoughts, replace thoughts with activities. And S, sensations, use your 5 senses to self-soothe. So let's look at a little video exactly about the accept skill.
Crisis survival skills are all about how to get through difficult times in effective ways without doing anything to make the situation, your stress or anxiety worse. We can also frame crisis survival skills as skills for tolerating painful events and emotions when you cannot make them better right away. Distract is a crisis survival skill set comprised of 7 strategies that are easily remembered by the acronym ACCEPTS. The first distract skill is activities. Activities has to do with getting through the difficult situation by putting your attention on a completely different endeavor. This could be watching a video or movie, or it could be playing a board game, video game, or engaging in a sport or exercise. It could be cleaning your room with your full attention, something that takes your mind off the crisis or distressing situation with an active pursuit. The second distract skills is contributing, which is doing something nice for someone else. This could be volunteering. It could be donating time or money to a favorite cause of yours. It can also be doing something relatively simple, like telling a close friend or family member something that you like about them, writing a note or card to someone, calling or reaching out to people, buying a small gift for somebody. Just really doing something to take your mind and attention off how a crisis has affected you, and instead contributing to other people in your life, which takes the focus off yourself. The third skill is comparison, which has to do with comparing yourself to people who are coping the same or less well than you, or comparing yourself to your own self at a time when you weren't coping as well. For example, getting through something that's really difficult for you right now by saying, "This is really difficult, but at least I have food and shelter, unlike other people in this world." Or, "This is stressful and the world seems like it's falling apart, but at least I'm in relatively good health and I will survive this." Sometimes people say that they don't like this skill because they then feel guilty about comparing themselves to people that are less fortunate than them. It's understandable that this might come up for people. However, it's also a pretty natural and effective thing sometimes to say to oneself that things aren't as bad as I think they are for me. And that's what the skill comparison helps with. If effective, you can also compare the current situation with harder situations you have faced in the past, saying, "This is really difficult for me, but I've handled other situations that were this hard successfully." The fourth skill is distracting yourself with emotions, and specifically with different emotions than what you're currently feeling. So if you're feeling intense sadness or anger, you could use the emotion skill by watching a really scary movie or watching a really funny video. You could be listening to music that activates you in a different way than your current emotions are telling you. The trick here would be to find music that generates different emotions than what you're feeling, not music that prolongs your mood. The fifth distract skill is pushing away. Pushing away is mentally putting what's difficult in a box, on a shelf, deep in a closet. It's saying to yourself, "I'm not going to think about this at all for the next 15 minutes. Or I'm not going to think about this at all for the next 2 hours while I do this other thing." And it's just mentally pushing it away for the short term. The T in accept stands for thoughts. And this has to do with consuming your brain in some way with thoughts that take your mind off your current difficult situation. It could be doing subtraction or addition in your head, counting down by 7 from some large number. It could be counting the tiles in the ceiling in the room that you're in, or outside counting the number of trees that you see. It could be any other kind of mental activity, like a puzzle, that's incompatible with all the stressful, anxious thoughts that you're having. Finally, the S stands for sensations. The sensation skill is doing something that elicits strong sensations that will get your mind off of what is currently distressing you. Holding ice in your hand is something that maybe in the first few seconds doesn't elicit intense sensation. But if you did it for longer, you will start to feel intense sensations there. Squeezing a stress ball really hard, taking a very hot or very cold shower, biting into a lemon. These are all powerful sensations, and when you feel something at the level of sensation in an intense way, it's going to pull your attention away from things that are difficult. So again, the 7 distract skills are activities, contribute, comparison, emotions, pushing away, thoughts, and sensations. You don't want to spend your entire life distracting, but in the short term, these skills are extremely helpful for getting through a distressing situation without doing anything to make it worse.
So that's an excellent video, and hopefully you folks can see and understand some of these distraction techniques are exactly that. They're meant to be distraction techniques to help you get through the short term. These are not skills that we're going to use to solve problems. As a matter of fact, if we use these skills towards solving problems, we're actually going to create an unhealthy level of avoidance. So these are specific distress tolerance skills that you are using to help you get past or get through a very highly charged emotional moment. Okay? Now let's go to the next one. So self-soothing for the 5 senses. So many of you may already use this skill, and there's a lot of benefits in intentionally planning for and using this skill in the future. So self-soothing is a quick and efficient way to reduce the intensity of emotions and anxiety. So first, let's focus on sight. Low lighting, soothing colors, nature views, sleeping masks, coloring books, art, Pinterest collages, favorite movies, video games. All self-soothing through the sight. Let's go to sound. Calming noises, ASMR videos, headphones, nature sounds, guided meditations, binaural beats, laughter, your favorite music and audiobooks. Touch, massage, soft cuddly things, stress balls, hot and cold showers, heated weighted blankets, slime, fidget spinners, kinetic sand. Smell, aromatherapy, fresh air, candles and incense, comforting smells, herbal pillows and scented lotion. And taste, eating slowly, nostalgic flavors, warm drinks, strong flavors, your favorite sweets, trying new foods, letting candy melt in your mouth. So it's a really good idea for everybody to kind of create for yourself a self-soothing kit where you collect up items and things that you like to do all together in a basket or a box for when you need it. Even if you just make a list, a self-soothing list on your phone, for example, right? It's a great reminder for when you're in the emotion mind. And when you're in the emotion mind, the less you need to think about or figure out, the better. So if you have that list or if you have that self-soothing kit or basket already ready to go, there's a plus. So having things already prepared, like the self-soothe kit, a cold pack for the tip skill, for example, that can increase your chances of actually using these skills when needed. So we're going to move past that video. And now we're going to look at the skill, the distress tolerance skill of improve. So this skill is meant to make difficult moments just a little bit more bearable. And it can help bring moments of peace or pleasantness into a challenging time. So I is for imagine. M is for meaning. P is for pause. R is for relax. O is for one thing. V is for vacation. And E is for encouragement. So I'm going to show you the video on the next slide on the improve skill, which is also a dialectical behavior therapy skill.
The set of skills known as improve the moment are about doing something with a crisis to lessen how bad it is. Improve is an acronym that stands for 7 additional skills. Imagery refers to using imagery to create a more relaxing scene, your own personal image of a happy place that you can go to in your mind when you're feeling stressed. You can play around with this and develop this image more fully over time. It could be based on a real place that you know, or it could be imaginary, as long as it's a scene in which you feel protected and calm. The other way in which you can use imagery is to actually imagine things going well. Imagine coping well. Imagine how the next couple weeks and months could turn out in a way that is fine and calm and without crisis. A final way in which you can use imagery is to imagine stress leaving your body. For example, you can imagine stress draining out of you like water out of a pipe. Meaning refers to the skill in which you are essentially saying to yourself, if I'm going to go through this, at least I'll get something out of it. Meaning is a form of making lemonade out of lemons. What can I get out of this experience, even though it feels terrible right now? The famous quote, whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger, is actually an example of this. It's saying that there's something that I can get out of this crisis, and I'm going to find that meaning. For example, you could say, this crisis is important because it's helping me recognize the things that are most important to me, the people that are most important to me, the values that are most important to me. The third skill is prayer. This skill involves opening your heart to a supreme being or to a greater wisdom and asking for strength to get through this difficult time. Prayer may be a vital part of your life already. For others who are religious but don't pray, or others who don't identify as religious, you can still use this skill because you can pray to many things. It doesn't have to be to God. It could be to your own sense of wisdom. Taking a minute to go inside yourself and praying for strength and to get through this crisis. The fourth skill is relaxation. The focus here is to relax in this moment as a way of making this moment less painful. Taking a couple of minutes to just sit and breathe deeply, making sure that your exhalation is longer than your inhalation. It's the exhalation that leads to the psychophysiological response of relaxation. Other things that you can do for relaxation are to take a calming bath or shower, to sit and drink tea or coffee with a book in a comfy chair, yoga, stretching, or taking a 5-minute time out from anything else you're doing to do something calming and peaceful. The fifth skill is one thing at a time. When we're in a crisis, when we're experiencing a high degree of stress, our minds are usually in 1,000 places at once. One thing at a time is about putting your full attention into just one thing that you're doing right in this moment. This could be anything. This could be, I'm washing the dishes and I am only washing the dishes right in this moment. I am walking from my car to work or to home and I am only walking. That is the only thing that I'm doing. I am in conversation with someone and that's all I'm doing. Mindfully saying for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to do this one activity. And whatever that activity is, you're going to throw your full attention into that. The sixth skill is vacation. Vacation is giving yourself a mental and physical break. It's getting into bed and pulling the covers up over your head for 20 minutes. For vacation to be skillful, you need to do it in a way that doesn't hurt you or harm you in some long-term way. So you're not doing a vacation when you should be at something important. You're saying to yourself, I'm going to do this in a time-limited way and just let myself zone out. I'm going to look at the silliest stuff I can find online. I'm going to sit on the couch and eat chips for 20 minutes. This is what I'm going to do. And then when the timer goes off, my vacation is done and I'm going back to work. It's really just taking a breather. The last improve the moment skill is encouragement. Encouragement is essentially cheerleading yourself. It's repeating over and over things that you would probably say to someone else, but instead saying it to yourself. Examples of encouragement are, I can stand this. I can do this. I can cope with this. This won't last forever. This too shall pass. It's okay to feel this. Encouraging yourself may not come naturally to you, in which case you might ask yourself, what would I say to a friend? And then apply it to yourself. It's learning the fine art of talking to yourself as though you're talking to someone else. So again, the 7 improved skills are imagery, meaning, prayer, relaxation, one thing in the moment, vacation, and encouragement. These are the skills for making the difficult moment that you're in better in some
Excellent. So there's our improved skill.
way.
So folks, with that said, all of our content on distress tolerance skills has been completed. Remember again that these skills are to help you get through a distressing moment, through when the times when your emotions are at an all-time high. They're not for solving problems. So these skills are little moments that you can practice in the pauses of your day, and you can really, really see a difference in your life. So thank you so much for being here with me. I have a couple of resources here. We have Mindwell U, TAL resources, online short programs. We have Doorways, which are our walk-in mental health clinics across the province. We have our adult ICANN anxiety and depression programs, LifeWise and Bridge the Gap. We also have our NL groups as well, which is by self-referral. So if you're interested in any or all of these supports, you can certainly go online at bridgethegap.ca and you can find all information about them there. So just as a little checkout, it's good for you to think about what's one thing you're taking away from today's session, or What have you found that was most helpful? And I challenge you to commit to trying one new thing that you learned about distress tolerance skills. Just commit to one new thing, whether it's your stop skill or your improve skill, any of them. Commit to one new thing next time that you find yourself in that emotion mind and ask yourself, which skill am I most interested in trying? So thank you all for being here with me today. That concludes our session on distress tolerance skills. Thank you for being here.